Okay. My name is Josh Booth. I'm the chair of Warrington Young Labour.
I'm Alice McMahon. I'm Women's Officer for Young Labour.
And we're here today with Jeremy Corbyn, Labour leadership candidate. And we're going to ask him a few questions for our new blog, which is quite exciting. Do you want to ask the first one?
Go for it. Many defenders of paid higher education argue that since you don't repay your loans until you are earning enough to pay them back comfortably. As someone who supports the scrapping of university fees, what would be your argument against this?
University fees have rebalanced the funding of universities towards students and away from the state. It's led to enormous levels of debt. It's also led to an enormous debt by the student loan company of students who don't earn enough to pay it back, or former students who don't earn enough to pay it back. My view is that we should be prepared to reduce and then eventually abolish the student fees so that students don't end up with this massive level of debt. The idea that we should charge graduates more is, I think, a rather fallacious one. We should tax people because they're wealthy, not because they're educated.
Okay, all right, thanks for that. This next question is to do with young people and the justice system, actually. It's estimated by the Ministry of Justice that there are 200,000 children that experience the imprisonment of their parents. Figures show that if your parent goes to prison, you are 3 times more likely to be involved in offending, and the impact is poorer outcomes in life, stigma, isolation, mental health issues, and financial difficulties. Currently, there is no routine identification of who these children are, and therefore no way of ensuring their needs are met. Do you believe that your Labour government would be able to find these invisible children? And what else do you think can be done to ensure that children are not punished for their parents' crimes?
That's an absolutely excellent issue, and it's one that I feel very strongly about. In the last Parliament, I was a member of the Justice Select Committee, and I looked a lot at length of prison terms, treatment of prisoners, the very poor outcomes of those that have been in prison, the high level of reoffending. Young people reoffending, for example, young offenders is 70% in Britain. Denmark has got it down to 19% because they do things rather differently and rather more sensibly there. I think when a prison sentence is handed down by a court, a whole lot of factors should and must be taken into account, including the family circumstances, including the children, and inevitably there are consequences of people going to prison, but I do think that we should be looking for much shorter sentences, much higher level of education within the prison, much more family leave, and much more appropriate, sensible family visiting of people in prison. The idea that children should be hanging around in a common visiting area, seeing their mum or dad on the other side of a table for half an hour and then moving on is really just not right. And the question points to a very important factor that unfortunately the children of those that have been in prison sometimes disproportionately end up as prisoners themselves in the future. We have a prison population now in Britain of 84,000, the highest in Europe, and the policies of the government are to increase it even further, including the building of a super prison in North Wales by private companies on the model of the American prison system. We can, must and should do things a lot better. I studied this a great deal. As I said, I went to Denmark and Norway and a number of other places. They do things far more sensibly and far better. Lower crime rate, lower level of reoffending. Brutalising people in prison doesn't make them better people.
Okay, all right, thanks very much. Cool.
Politicians across the political spectrum recognise that the youth and student vote could be the key to any election victory. You yourself are gaining a great deal of support from young Labour members. Unfortunately, not all young people are members of a young political group such as we are. How do you suggest that Labour wins the support of young people?
Excuse me. The Conservatives changed the registration system, and so the numbers of young people that were eligible to vote at the last election was significantly lower than previous elections. And on top of that, only 47% of young voters actually turned out to vote. Those that did vote big majority were Labour voters. So we lost an awful lot of potential support amongst that age group. I think we lost support because we were unclear on a number of things, unclear about austerity, unclear about housing issues, and unclear about why we should oppose a youth rate on the minimum wage, why we should oppose the ludicrously low room rate for young people, and deal with the housing issue. We have the highest age of anywhere in Europe of people leaving home to live on their own. I mean, in my constituency, I have families coming to me where they've got children in their 40s who are still in their house, who can't get anywhere else to live. It varies a bit across the country, but it's a bad situation. How do we do this? Well, a couple of things. One is, don't patronise and assume that young people are not political. They're very political on many issues, on education issues, particularly on environment issues, international peace issues, and opposition to austerity. Do they join political parties? Some. I wish more would. And I want to see a strong and vibrant young Labour. I started out in the Labour Party Young Socialists, and I loved doing it. I loved the work we did, and we used to have weekly meetings in the district that I organised in Shropshire, and we got 50 people every Sunday night where we met, and we did political debate and political activity, and we also had a lot of fun together. So it was a great spirit, and it was a great spirit of people who were students, young workers, older school students, and it was a fantastic atmosphere, and I'm still in touch with some of those people now.
That's fantastic. But we need to boost our numbers a bit.
You'll still be in touch with each other in 50 years' time.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, next one. Countless former Labour voters voted for UKIP, a far-right party, in the recent general election. Do you believe we can win these voters back and prevent first-time voters in 2020 from turning to them too? And if so, how?
Yes, I think we can win them back, and I think many people that voted for UKIP voted out of a sense of total despair. They didn't feel that the Conservatives were offering them anything other than a lifetime of low wages, semi-employment, sanctioning on benefits, and lack of housing. They weren't inspired enough by us, and so they often voted UKIP out of a sense of desperation. I've had quite a lot of discussions with former UKIP voters. When it comes to issues like public ownership of the railways, like building more council housing, like energy companies being brought under proper control, all those kind of issues, they're absolutely with us. We've got to be proud to present politics as something about improving the living standards and life opportunities of working class communities all over the country. We shouldn't apologise for our union links, we shouldn't apologise for our foundation and our background, be proud of it and mobilise people. But you don't win elections in the 3 weeks of voter identification. You win elections over a much longer period of our party becoming a real social movement. So that when people are campaigning for lots of things, internationally on human rights, locally on environmental issues, housing, planning issues, all those kind of things, the Labour Party, the local Labour Party should be there, part of it, part of the community. So people see the Labour Party as their local group.
Okay. Right, we've got one last one.
Final question.
And we'll let you go.
As young people who are frequently voicing our political opinions on social media, we know what it's like to have people to disagree with us. You face some serious challenges to your political beliefs and even your character since you announced you were running for leadership. How has this made you feel?
Well, you can get a bit over-obsessed with social media. You can live with looking at Twitter and Facebook and all the rest of it all day long. You probably do, I don't know. And you can sort of think that whatever's said on Twitter and Facebook is actually what's being said by everybody all around the place. Yeah, of course it's important, and it's a great form of communication and a great form of mobilising people. I mean, we had a public meeting in Bristol last week. 500 people came along. Most of it was through social media. We just emailed and social media messaged around the place. Lots of people turn up. It's a great way of communication. It's not necessarily the best form of political debate, because in a short Twitter message, you can't really get across a nuanced political position. You really cannot discuss the economic future of Europe and the rest of the world in 168 characters. It's quite difficult. So I do think we have to use it as much as we can, but it's also talking to people one-to-one, talking to people directly, because I find that people say quite offensive things on social media they would never dream of saying face-to-face. And so I always take this with a pinch of salt. But I have a policy: if people send me a rude email, And some people send me incredibly rude emails. I write back and say, dear so-and-so, thank you so much for your carefully thought out and considered position. I wondered if you would care to reread what you sent to me and possibly frame it in a slightly different way, and then we can have a discussion about the issues that you clearly feel very passionately about. This completely throws people. So the ruder people are to me, the more polite I am to them.
Kill
And
them with
that
kindness.
actually lowers the temperature, increases the level of engagement. You might find common ground, you might not, but we're socialists, we respect each other. You don't impose socialism. Socialism, socialist ideas, community ideas grow from the ground.
Thank you very
Right,
much.
thanks very much. That's all from us now. Make sure to like our Facebook page and stuff. Thank you very much, Jeremy, for coming in.
Thank you very
doing this
much.
with us.
Really enjoyed it. And now over to the hustings just down
Yeah.
the road.
The
Woo!
hustings.
Looking
Hustings
forward to
time.
it. Thank you very much.